Hi, Luca. Hi, Zach. I'm Riley Chow of Gold Derby, and we're here to talk about the Golden Globe television nominations, which will be announced on December 9th, and voting will be taking place from November 14th to 25th. This year, the big question I have is what is going to happen with Apple TV Plus? A few years ago, I think every television network wanted to be AMC. They saw this network that didn't used to produce original content. Suddenly they were making Mad Men, Breaking Bad, Broken Trail, and The Walking Dead, these huge hits from audience and critical standpoints. So suddenly we had all these other cable networks coming in and making original shows. The Globe slashed on to many of them. Then eventually there were too many of these networks and the Globe stopped trying to find every new thing. Now I think the same thing might be happening with streaming, where right now everybody wants to be Netflix, but has it gone too far? Have too many of these streaming services come in, and now the Globes are going to be less receptive to Disney Plus, HBO Max, FX on Hulu, or what have you? So how do you guys feel about how Apple TV Plus and their new shows, specifically the likes of The Morning Show, Dickinson, For All Mankind, Truth Be Told, and Servant, how do you think they're going to fare overall?
Luca, you want to jump in first?
Okay, I'll jump in first. I think the main problem is really that there are way too many shows out there, and at the moment it's kind of difficult to see which ones will land and which ones won't. I mean, I guess we'll talk about Apple TV Plus first, since their shows just dropped on November 1st, and the reception was okay. It was, not great for all shows, and there wasn't really a single show that really got great reviews. But I think in terms of the Globes, the reviews are not that important because the Globes Globe voters vote for who they want to vote for. And even then, I'm not sure how the shows are going to do. I think Jennifer Aniston for The Morning Show in Drama Actress is an absolute lock. I think she is competitive for the win. She's having this big TV comeback and is giving an incredible performance. But except for that, I don't even know if The Morning Show is necessarily going to get into drama series. I currently have it there right now, but I'm not sure at all. And as for the other shows such as Dickinson and I just don't know if they'll land with Globe voters. But at the moment, there are so many shows, and we still have a few that will premiere in early December, and I don't know how voters are going to watch everything before they have to check off or mark their ballots.
Yeah, it's interesting because the Golden Globes in the past have been much more receptive to recognizing not just new programs, but also new networks. I remember just a few years ago, they were the people who nominated the first season of Casual on Hulu back before Hulu was, the major player that it is today. And they could do the same thing for Apple TV. I think with The Morning Show, yes, it's a show that got, let's say, middling reviews, but it is an audience favorite. And it does have, people like Jennifer Aniston, who looks like she's going to be nominated in the drama actress field. It's got people like Reese Witherspoon and Steve Carell and Mark Duplass, all these people who they might want to have at the program at their dinner, just to put it bluntly. And so, I think that could be enough to at least put Apple TV into the awards conversation for this year. Now, whether or not that means that this show or Jennifer Aniston is going to actually win the Golden Globe, I don't know about that. I think that there's a lot of competition from other programs that we'll talk a little bit more about later that could keep it from prevailing in the end.
Yeah, when The Morning Show got those middling reviews, the show that I actually really took out of my predictions was Dickinson. I figured, I thought the Globes would really embrace Apple TV Plus, but audiences have not, certainly. All the shows have kind of middling reviews, And I figured that maybe the morning show can get in off of its pedigree, but I don't know if it's going to be strong enough to carry anything else. And I think last year was kind of a turning point for me in how I saw how the Globes are treating new shows when in my lead actor predictions, I had Kevin Costner for Yellowstone, which actually is this ratings hit on the Paramount Network. And Kevin Costner is someone who has won a TV Globe very recently. And I also had J.K. Simmons for Counterpoint, which is on Starz, a network that they love. He's in a dual role. He's another person who won a Globe very recently, and neither of them were nominated, which is not a huge deal because, nobody cares about those shows really, especially in the kind of prestige conversation. But it signaled to me that the Globes aren't just going to be nominating random shows like Dickinson without some kind of impetus from the critics and what have you. So I think that the morning show actually is going to do very well, just because watching it, the content seems like something that is up their alley. However, Luca, you said that, it might not be safe in drama series, and I can also see that because with a few exceptions, namely The Newsroom and Bohemian Rhapsody, I think the Globes have actually really turned a corner in the last few years, maybe since The Tourist, where they're kind of going out of their way to nominate only good stuff. And this does not have the reviews of most of the things that have been nominated for Globes in recent years.
Yeah. And it also sort of it doesn't lean towards the soapy side, but it's very over the top and it's very melodramatic. And, Reese Witherspoon sometimes has these really hammy lines, or she delivers them in a hammy way. I just don't know if the show overall is exactly what, Globe voters would like to reward. I think the performances are absolutely something they will want to reward. I just don't know if both Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon get in, because I'm pretty sure that Jennifer Aniston is in, but Reese Witherspoon has The Morning Show and Big Little Lies, and she's competing for both in lead. So either they just put their support behind one of the performances, or she splits the vote. And then we also have these supporting players, and many of them could get in. I just really don't know if they're going to go for the show that much. And even Steve Carell, who I thought before I watched the show would be a lock, after watching it, I'm not so sure. I think from all the complaint, or most people were complaining about his work on the show, or the work, or the material his character was given. So I really don't know how it'll perform overall. And as you said, drama series, if you look at the winners, like The Americans and The Handmaid's Tale, and they do reward the shows that are also critically acclaimed and, have been showered with Emmy wins or nominations. So I'm not sure about The Morning Show in drama series.
Yeah, Steve Carell is tricky because at first it was reported that he was going to be submitting as a lead actor. Now it seems that he's actually going to be submitted as a supporting actor.
Yeah.
But he faces internal competition from Billy Crudup, who's getting much better notices. Steve Carell, he is a supporting actor in the show, where he will miss, entire episodes. But I thought this would kind of be like a case of Steve Carell in the film Battle of the Sexes, where he kind of takes advantage of the different category structures, where he'll submit, lead for the Globes, maybe supporting for the Emmys. But yeah, he's been really overshadowed by the women and Billy Crudup in terms of reviews. One to watch out for, I think, is Gugu Mbatha-Raw. She has great material in the last 3 episodes of the season. I'm not sure how far the Globe voters are going to get before they vote in a couple days. So,
well, we should also say that for both Steve Carell and Gugu Mbatha-Raw and Billy Crudup and Mark Duplass and all these people, it's not just like, will they get in for the show? It's the fact that, like, the supporting TV categories at the Golden Globes are the hardest categories to predict because they pick from comedy, they pick from drama, they pick from limited series, and they pick from TV movie. So you've got all these different programs competing in the same exact category, and it just makes it all the more harder for somebody to get in. I mean, Steve Carell has the advantage of the fact that he's a previous Golden Globe winner and he's a multi-Golden Globe nominee on both the TV and the film side. That puts him at a greater advantage than some of his co-stars maybe. But at the same time, if Billy Crudup is the one who's getting all the great notices, does he then get in over Steve Carell? Or do they both get in? Or do neither get in? Because then you've got all these people from Succession, all these people from Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, people from Chernobyl, people from When They See Us. I mean, it's just like, it's a great big messy category that they have. And I always just kind of throw my hands up in the air whenever I'm predicting either a supporting actor or actress on the TV side at the Globes. Because there really is no way to just like accurately pin it down. Although we try.
Yeah, let's talk about Succession, because Succession is a show that got a single Globe nomination last year for Kieran Culkin, who had been nominated before. And I don't really take that nomination as meaning very much because he's from a famous family. I see that as kind of like how they nominated Scott Conn a few years ago for Hawaii Five-0. Just because, they like the family. He was getting decent reviews. The next year, they nominated Danny Houston from Magic City. Again, famous family, supporting performance, didn't really mean anything. I'm not sure that the Globe voters really care about Succession. I know that it's maybe the most critically acclaimed show on TV, but I mean, the Globes often have a lot of overlap with the BAFTAs on the film side. I guess different international sensibilities. BAFTA awarded Succession the best show in the world for its first season, and the Globes didn't even nominate it, even though they love HBO, they love new shows, and it had all this critical acclaim for season one. I'm not convinced that it's suddenly going to make a breakthrough now. I kind of wonder if it's just like The Leftovers, where it got tons of critical acclaim in its second season, much more than its first, actually. It had, sexy star in Justin Theroux, who was married to Jennifer Aniston at the time, and they still ignored it. So why are the Globes going to change course on Succession this year?
Well, all due respect to Hawaii Five-0 and Magic City, but they haven't exactly garnered the they never exactly garnered the amount of critical acclaim and audience acclaim that Succession has garnered. I mean, that's the thing about it, is that it's not just like a critics show. It's a hot show amongst audience members as well, and I think that helps give it a boost. I mean, last year it got really good reviews. It had a devoted fan base, but it wasn't the it show. It wasn't being talked about at water coolers and things like that. And so that's the difference between last year and this year. You're right, Riley. I mean, there is no way of knowing whether or not they will actually embrace it more this year, even with the critical laudits and even with the strong audience response for season 2, because they could just as easily go to other new shows, right? Or they could just return to their old favorites. But I think that, given the sheer amount of buzz around the show, it would be a surprise if it didn't at least get in for drama series. Yeah. And maybe even a few acting categories.
Yeah. And it also has the added benefit of having aired, starting August, and it had, we at least know that voters probably watched the show, whereas right now in November, even October, we had a bunch of shows premiering, way too many shows at once. Even next weekend, we still have The Crown premiering this third season, and I just feel like it already had momentum, and if enough people watched it, I mean, we're talking about 90-something HFPA voters, and I just feel like it would be weird after the reception it got for its second season for it to really go home empty-handed in terms of nominations. at this point, I see it either getting snubbed entirely, or I see it getting drama series, at least one lead actor, maybe a supporting actor. At the moment, I actually have it performing very well, but Riley, you're kind of right, especially with, Kieran Culkin's strange nomination last year, that maybe we're overestimating the support for the show at the Globes. But at the same time, it's just too hard to ignore after the reception it received for its second season. Even if you didn't watch it, and I have to admit, I haven't seen Succession yet, you knew that it was on. I know. You knew that it was on because everyone was talking about it everywhere. Everyone was, singing their praises for it. So I can't see it being snubbed at the moment. I think at least for the Emmys next year, it'll blow up. And sometimes the Globes love to be the first ones to really, reward a show, even though it did win an Emmy, but they could really rev up its momentum by giving it, a Globe win or a ton of nominations.
I think there's also something to be said for Succession in terms of if they don't go with Succession, like what are they going to do in lead actor? Because right now, in that category, in my predictions, I've got Billy Porter, of course, Tobias Menzies, and then I've got Penn Badgley for You, Kevin Bacon for City on a Hill, and I have Liev Schreiber for Ray Donovan. I'm trying so hard to avoid Succession in my predictions, but I just don't know what else to do.
You need to give in to the buzz, Riley. I mean, it makes it so much easier when you can put both Brian Cox and Jeremy Strong in your best actor predictions, like I rather foolishly have. I mean, it's kind of unlikely that they'll both get in, but, like you said, the category itself is so kind of weak. It could happen. I mean, it makes it a lot easier for you to just make those predictions and hedge your bets, because I feel like one of them will get in, if not both of them. I mean, especially when you, not to spoil anything, but when you see season 2 and how it unravels, I mean, it's just hard to ignore. Like, it's too juicy for the two of them to actually be competing against each other in this category.
But as someone who hasn't seen it, are they is it a case where both of them get nominated together? Or is it a case where they can, be nominated separately, or just one of them being nominated? Because, for example, at the Emmys, we've seen Sterling K. Brown and Milo Ventimiglia. They always come as a package. And I'm not quite sure whether to bring both of them. And as someone who hasn't seen season 2, if I only have to pick one, which one of the two stands a stronger chance? I would just say Brian Cox because of his name. But is there a case for the two of them? Because I've heard that Jeremy Strong was almost borderline supporting. So what would you say about that?
I would say that there is a case to be made for both of them getting in, just because of how the show unravels in season 2. I mean, the fact is, if it's hard for Jeremy Strong to go supporting, because they also have not just Kieran Culkin, but Matthew McFadden and some other options there as well. It makes sense from a narrative perspective that he would be in lead alongside Brian Cox, because most of the drama in the show hinges on this relationship, this kind of like Vito and Michael Corleone relationship between the two of them, and how that's unfolding from, season 1 to season 2, and what we can expect in season 3 is going to happen. Brian Cox does have the name recognition, but I think there's a lot of passion for Jeremy Strong's performance as well. So I think that they could both get in on that. I don't know who to tell you to choose if you're only going to pick one, because the fact is, do you go with name recognition or do you go with overall passion?
Right.
So it could be a Sterling and Milo situation, at least as far as the Emmys go. Globes, who knows?
Yeah, I think Zach has pretty much summed it up. And I also don't know if the Globes, if they embrace Succession this time, is it going to be to recognize the 2 seasons that have aired or just season 2? Right. Because in season 2, Jeremy Strong, he is more of a supporting presence than he was in the first season. But in the first season, I think kind of everybody preferred him to Brian Cox. but then again, Brian Cox has the name recognition. So I don't know. I'm not sure if they're a package deal, but I couldn't tell you who's ahead, and I don't have to even rank them because they're not in my top 5.
But you do have Penn Badgley in your top 5, you said. But if voting starts in a few days, no one has actually seen the season, right?
I don't know. Like it comes out December 26th. I don't know if Netflix provided.
Oh, okay, right.
To voters, but it also came out so late on Netflix last year. I do wonder if this is kind of an Outlander situation where the Globes, they didn't really realize it was on last year, or Mozart in the Jungle, or whatever.
Yeah, because it was also on Lifetime, I believe, before it even
was on
moved to
Lifetime,
Netflix.
but they kind of canceled it, and then it got this new life when it came out on Netflix at the very end of the year.
That's another performance I'm kind of shocked in hindsight that it didn't get nominated, because we have, former Gossip Girl vet on this show playing a real, serial killer, stalker, psychopath with a actually, really good performance that gained a lot of traction. And I thought he would stand a chance because, it's the type of performance and, actor the Globes like to reward. But again, they didn't nominate him. And you mentioned before how we had J.K. Simmons and Kevin Costner, who could have been typical Globe nominees, not getting in. And that even makes me question having Kevin Bacon in my predictions, because I know Globe voters love Showtime, and we'll talk about Showtime in the comedy series race, where I also have it in a few categories. But even there, I don't know if he'll make it in the end, because was that a performance or show that people really talked about? Not really. So again, it's such a difficult category. I mean, then we have Kit Harington for Game of Thrones, a show they've never really liked. If the show were more popular overall, I could see him getting in. But at the moment, I just don't see it. They really haven't. They've given it one win so far for its first 7 seasons, and it's 8 when it's eligible this year. So I don't know.
But
I'll just say quickly, like you mentioned that they love Showtime, but like what did Billions get? Starring Globe winners Paul Giamatti and Damian Lewis.
That's a good question. I wanted to make a point about Game of Thrones because, what happened last year that was maybe the most shocking thing of all was when the Americans won Best Drama Series after basically being ignored throughout its entire run. So I don't know, maybe this is the year that Game of Thrones kind of comes out swinging, and a person like Kit Harington or maybe even Emilia Clarke could get nominated alongside, like, the pretty easy choice of a Peter Dinklage. Maybe this is the year that Game of Thrones wins Best Drama Series at the Globes. Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah. I currently don't even have it nominated for drama series, which if a year ago anyone had told me that I wasn't, or that a lot of people were not going to have it in the number 1 slot for best drama series at the Globes, giving it a Breaking Bad type of win, in the final season after they hadn't recognized it at all, I would have said you're crazy. But I mean, it even at the main telecast at the Emmys, it only won 2. And even if the Emmys couldn't, it still won all the technical categories. But if the Emmys didn't, embrace it as even more than in previous years, then I don't see why Globe voters will do it, because they've never really liked the show. They've given it 1 win for Peter Dinklage. And there's a lot of competition in drama series, and if they didn't like the final season, then there's no reason for them to nominate it. If they want to reward Game of Thrones, they might just give Peter Dinklage a nomination and in supporting actor, and that's it. And that's where I currently am in my predictions. But the drama series category is very, strange, because you also have Killing Eve, and then we have Watchmen, which I think is being underestimated. And then we have Euphoria. We have The Crown, obviously, with its 3rd season that arrives this Sunday. It's a stacked category, so Game of Thrones is in no way a lock.
Yeah, I don't think Game of Thrones is getting anything. I have one more question, a two-part question about drama. What do you guys think is going to happen with Big Little Lies and Killing Eve?
Right.
And I group these two together because I find that the Globes are sometimes more attuned to critical reception than even the Television Critics Association. Like last year when they nominated Elizabeth Moss and Yvonne Strahovski from The Handmaid's Tale, but they didn't nominate the show itself because by the end of the season, critics weren't really on board with it. I think we saw something similar with Big Little Lies and Killing Eve, where the shows overall are still acclaimed. They still have good audience scores on IMDb, but like the Big Little Lies finale has a 56% on Rotten Tomatoes after every other episode of the season was well reviewed, and Killing Eve 69% for the season finale. I feel like the critics are not really, they don't like where those shows ended up. And I'm wondering if the Globes, with how they love to latch onto new things and they love to just drop shows, whenever they can, if these shows are actually not that safe.
I think I think in terms of Killing Eve, I think it already slightly underperformed last year in that Jodie Comer wasn't able to get a nomination, which again, in hindsight, sort of shocks me because she's, the young breakthrough actress giving a incredibly showy performance in a show that seemed, a show like that they would like. And she was snubbed. They gave Sandra Oh the win, which I think a lot of us expected. But I feel like that will be the show to underperform this year. I don't have it in drama series. I only have it in drama actress for Jodie Comer as a makeup nomination for snubbing her last year. And now that she's won the Emmy, that'll give her another boost. And that's not to say that her performance wasn't good because she was absolutely amazing in the second season. And there's a reason why she won the Emmy. And Big Little Lies, I'm not sure because they loved the show in its first season. They gave it 4 awards. And they even, I believe it had 6 nominations. But as you said, Riley, the second season wasn't as well received. But we have Nicole Kidman, who will probably get nominated. We have Laura Dern. Both of them have movies coming out that will have them in the award scene anyway. And then, of course, we have Meryl Streep, who I think is an absolute lock for supporting actress. So I feel like if we're comparing the two, I think Big Little Lies will perform much better than Killing Eve.
Yeah, I think that overall they're probably more acting contenders than anything else. I mean, Meryl Streep getting nominated for this show, she could very well win for it, considering that she was, I guess, maybe the most talked about aspect of the second season of Big Little Lies. And there's a chance that they could also recognize Nicole Kidman, an actress, and Laura Dern again. I do think Killing Eve is probably maybe Jodie Comer or bust. I think that the series races are just so crowded. And, you brought up Watchmen, Luca, and that ties into a conversation about how many shows is HBO going to get nominated in drama series, between Succession and Watchmen, which are their 2 big shows, big new shows. Then, of course, Game of Thrones in its final season and Big Little Lies in what may very well be its final season. It's just like how... Euphoria, maybe. Yeah. So it's like how far can they stretch this in the category? And like things like something like Big Little Lies might be the sacrificial lamb in the overall series race, but could still dominate in acting.
Yeah, and just briefly, and what's more difficult to see is if, like, Watchmen, does it come with Regina King, a nomination in Best Drama Actress? Does Big Little Lies come with Nicole Kidman and Laura Dern? Does Euphoria come with Zendaya, or does she get nominated by herself? That's what's more complicated for me, because we do see the Globes, give these, when they nominate a show, they often nominate at least one actor. So I think that's even more difficult to see at this moment because, for example, at the moment I do have Watchmen nominated and I have Regina King nominated. I can't see the show nominated without her being nominated, especially since there's been a lot of buzz for that show, I think, from Globe voters as well. I think that's very interesting to look at this year.
All right, we've talked for a while. What do you guys want to talk about kind of broadly in the limited movie, comedy, supporting categories?
Unbelievable. or did you want to go ahead, Zach? Or
you know what? I mean, all I was going to say is like comedy. I guess I'm predicting that Fleabag will repeat its Emmy victories. Just because I don't see like a hot new comedy series emerging. Like Fleabag, oddly enough, even though its first season was 3 years ago, is the hot new comedy. And even though it's not even coming back for another season, I feel like that could probably repeat victories in comedy series and for Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Nothing else new seems to jump out at me. Like I don't think Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is going to do a three-peat, because if one thing is for certain about Globe voters is that they don't like to reward the same people over and over again. I think that Bill Hader will probably repeat his victory. Repeat his Emmy victory and edge out Michael Douglas in the comedy actor race, because again, there doesn't seem to be like, I guess Ben Platt would be the hot new comedy star, but
Ricky Gervais is hosting again.
I'll just say one thing about Limited, and before I see to Luca, I think that we're going to see possibly the same exact victories as we did at the Emmys. So I have Chernobyl winning, I have Michelle Williams winning, and I have Jarrell Jerome winning. There might be some differentiation, like maybe Jared Harris wins over Jarrell Jerome. Maybe Helen Mirren wins for Catherine the Great and starts off her whole Emmy trajectory. But at the moment, I'm just predicting them to repeat. And supporting, just throw your hands up in the air. Meryl and Andrew Scott, why not?
Yeah, I think I completely agree with what you said. I think Chernobyl, Michelle Williams, and Jarrell Jerome are practically locks. I don't see why they wouldn't win. I do agree that Jared Harris could actually win Best Drama Actor, because Chernobyl seems to be a show that the Globes would reward in more than one category, sort of like The Night Manager, just that The Night Manager didn't, sweep the Emmys like Chernobyl did. And then I do, even though I don't think it's going to win anything, and I'm not even sure how many nominations it's going to get, I do want to mention Unbelievable, which is a show that premiered in early September on Netflix, a show that sort of came out of nowhere and got, was very critically acclaimed. Even, it was viewed by many people, as Netflix reported. The reviews were pretty stellar. I saw very few actually bad reviews or even middling reviews. And again, here we have two performances in the lead category by Merritt Wever and Toni Collette, where I don't know do they come, as a package? Do they both get nominated, or does neither one get nominated? Even though I think the case can be made for Merritt Wever being nominated before Toni Collette, which might shock people since Toni Collette is the more, known person. But Merritt Wever, if you watch the show, Merritt Wever steals the show easily. And then we have Caitlin Dever in Supporting Actress, who will also be, is eligible on the movie side for Booksmart. And that's another case. They might just reward it for Booksmart and not for Unbelievable in the, crowded Supporting Actress field. I'm just hoping it gets some sort of nominations. I do have it in limited series and both lead actresses in at the moment, but I don't think it's a front runner anywhere. The Emmy winners will definitely win here as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I have a final thought about comedy and one about limited. For comedy, I took out The Politician in all categories. It is kind of a hot new show from Ryan Murphy that's kind of zany and in your face, and it seems like something the Globes would like. But, it does have that rotten score on Rotten Tomatoes, and I'm just not sure anybody cares. I feel like there are a lot of shows out there. I'm not sure people have latched on to The Politician. And then over in Limited, I'm going for an upset in lead actor, where I have Sacha Baron Cohen winning, because I can kind of see the through line at the Emmys from Riz Ahmed to Darren Criss to Jerome. I feel like at the Globes, they kind of go in a different direction. They've awarded people like Oscar Isaac and Idris Elba and Tom Hiddleston. Yeah, Ewan McGregor on the actor side. Instead of Frances McDormand, they went with Maggie Gyllenhaal for a show that had no other nominations. I feel like Sacha Baron Cohen for The Spy, even if it gets nothing else, he kind of fits that mold better. I'm not sure that the Globes really like, young people like that as much.
Right.
And what are your guys' final thoughts?
Excited to see what happens in less than 4 weeks. I mean, I can't believe it's mid-November and we're just less than a month away from the Golden Globe nominations. Isn't that wild, you guys? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're going to throw a bunch of curveballs at us, as they do every year. But I feel like this year is more unpredictable than the last few years, especially those supporting categories, which are always difficult to predict. Strangely enough, last year, I believe Gold Derby predicted the supporting actress category perfectly. We got all 5. And I feel like that could happen again this year. I think we have 5 solid frontrunners and then a few that could get nominated. But for example, the supporting actor side, I have no idea what to do there. And I think there and then perhaps lead actor in a drama series will just have a bunch of surprises. There's so much content out there and it's just some good stuff is not going to get recognized. And I think we all have to prepare for that because there's just too much on television and we don't even know which shows they've actually seen.
Mm-hmm.
All right, please subscribe to Gold Derby to see more of these slugfests.